Well, I'd like to welcome all of you to this session and welcome to the World Dairy Expo. My name is Paul Roby. I'm a dairyman from Glendale, Arizona, and I'm chairman of Dairy Management Incorporated. And today's seminar, Leading the Conversation, is sponsored by Dairy Management Incorporated, which we manage the National Dairy Producer Checkoff Program, and we have some featured presenters, some really good featured presenters. In public relations, it's Jane Hillstrom and Michelle Ruby. And Jane and Michelle will, they've worked with more than 2,000 dairy producers across our country to help them to prepare to be able to interact and have positive stories about how they produce milk on their dairies. And for those of you who are furthering your professional development, this seminar has been approved for continuing education credits from the American Registry of Professional Animal Scientists and the American Association of Veterinary State Boards RACE program. The forms are available in the back if you're interested in the RACE credits. So that's a needed plug. At this time, I'd like to have everybody turn your phones off so that nobody's interrupted with the an errant phone call. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and my operation. I dairy in Glendale, Arizona, and my father started the farm back in 1943. He was born in Arizona, and when he came back to his farm after college, he didn't have, the farm was being developed in the city, and so he purchased this dairy farm back in 1943. Well, in 1943, this was in the outback of Arizona. Now you can see that my dairy is in the middle of a city. If you see this little thing right there, that's the stadium that the Cardinals, the football team, play their games in. That's 1.5 miles from my dairy. And so consequently, it's a challenge every day to be a good neighbor, to be able to sell my dairy to the neighbors, that I'm a good piece of the community, and that I'm performing in a very positive manner. So we work very hard at that with this kind of a neighborhood. This program today is going to help you to learn about answering tough questions for either the press or your neighbors, or those opportunities where you'd have to be able to represent dairy and be able to tell your story, to tell the consumer about how good you do as a dairy producer in taking care of your animals and producing the super nutritious product of milk. And these are my kids. Got 5 of them. That's tough.
Okay.
Anyways, I'd like to.
That's okay.
And
Yeah.
This is about the future. That's kind of where my thing was. Is I'm doing all this because I want to build a better future for my children. Jane.
Paul has a wonderful family. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. All right, everybody's awake. A few years ago, I was asked to assist a dairy producer that was having trouble with extreme community opposition to his dairy. He was trying to expand his farm, and I was pulled in to try to help him out. And the opposition had a website, and I was sitting across from his wife, he and his wife, on his dairy, and we're at the kitchen table, and they were telling me all about the community opposition, and I said, okay, here's what we have to do. We have to get you a website. We have to get you on the speaking circuit for the Lions Club, for the Rotary Club, for the Kiwanis Club. We have to get a farm brochure. We have to get a fact sheet. We have to get all these things, all right? And I'm rattling them all off, and he goes, whoa, wait a minute. I am just a dairy farmer. My grandfather was just a dairy farmer. He was a very introverted man, and he would have really struggled in today's overconnected, overfed, overstimulated world that we live in. Our wealthy society, where we have the luxury to actually ask questions about where our food is coming from, right? So I I think about him often when I teach these workshops, because I think about, okay, he would be the one that would have difficulty. How can I help him? And some of those questions are really difficult. Michelle, you're a dairy producer. They are difficult, aren't they?
They certainly can be. That's right. I know last year we were doing a workshop with a group of producers, and one of them came up to us after the workshop, and he said, you know, I often get frustrated because I feel like consumers have a 1960s viewpoint of dairying, or how we should still be dairying. And Stan, what else did he say about that?
Well, we shared some information about who today's consumer is. Again, it's not necessarily us, they're different. And when we were done with the conversation about understanding the audience, he said, okay, I've got a 1970s view of who the consumer is.
That's right. That's exactly right. If you start thinking about just in your own personal life, how handheld devices, the internet, and certainly the changing social media landscape has evolved over the last 10 years, we can quickly deduce that there's never actually been a better opportunity for dairy producers as spokespeople, because it's given us a platform as dairy producers to have two-way dialogue like we've never had before. I can tell you, we have 2 dairy farms in Oregon. And I remember about 3 years ago standing in the kitchen, and I overheard my father say to my mother, Ida B., what's this texting thing I keep hearing people talk about? And she goes, Ray, don't worry about it. You don't need to know about it. It'd be like you typing on your phone, hi, Ida, how are you today? And I would text back, fine. I can tell you today there's not a day that goes by that we don't use texting to communicate with our 17 employees. And my mom might out-text me on some days. So we're going to share some information about communication techniques and get started.
Okay, so we're going to get this really interactive right away. So I want you to picture yourself. You're walking through the barns. You're dairy producers, of course, and you're walking through the barns at World Dairy Expo. And you run into a friend of yours. And the friend of yours is showing cattle, and all of their cattle are there in the barns. And the two of you are having a great conversation about the cattle. And 40 fourth graders are walking through the barns. And there's 3 moms chaperoning. And one of the moms sees you and walks up to you and says, hi, I'm Jane from Madison, and well, I was watching Katie Couric on the news the other night, and she had a show on, is our food supply safe? And you know, one of the things that she brought up were antibiotics in milk. So I just wanted to ask you, are there antibiotics in milk? Because my son Johnny, he loves milk, and just, you know, are there?
Ma'am, let me tell you right now, the facts are all there, black and white. Antibiotics are not in our milk. They're tested every day. If mothers would pay more attention to getting your kids a little exercise and away from the TV, it would be a lot better, and there are no antibiotics in milk. Come on, don't you know? I mean, silly.
Okay, all right, first of all, Skip Hardy from New York gets an Oscar for his performance. Talk about getting out of your comfort zone, right? Dairy producers have to get a website and be actors when they come to our workshops. But what did you see Skip do that he could have done? What did you see he could have done differently? Anybody? See him do something? Not criticize the mother. Great one. Yeah, definitely. So, oh, go ahead. Yes. Yes. Lots of body language, right? Yes.
I think he dismissed her concern like it was an invalid concern.
Definitely. Great, great observation. Yes.
Maybe a little defensive?
Yes, he was defensive. I think we're going to sit down and they can just teach this workshop, don't you? So, yeah, he did a lot of those things, and we're going to, I know Skip, and I know he would answer that much more eloquently if that actually happened, just so you know. But we're going to talk about what to do and what not to do in this situation.
That's right. So as we get started, we want you guys to know 3 things about us. The first is we absolutely believe in the healthfulness of the milk that each and every one of you in this room produce. Number 2, we believe that there's no better spokespeople to talk about dairy than each and every one of you in this room. And by the time we're done today, you're going to believe it too. And lastly, we have a lot of information in a very short amount of time, so we're going to get started, and we might move a little quickly.
Yes, this is normally a 4-hour workshop, so go.
So with that, how do we answer difficult questions? And more than that, how do we lead the conversation? Anyone have or want to share an example of maybe a tough question they've received from a consumer, a friend? You know, maybe it's a school event. Any tough questions out there, or at least tough topics?
Somebody asked you something and you kind of went, ooh, how do I answer that? Yes?
Well, I guess I've heard a lot from people, is organic milk better, is it more healthy, and, just kind of wondering what the differences really are.
Great example, great example.
She said, is organic milk healthy, if you couldn't hear her in the back.
Any other examples of tough topics that you've come across personally? Yes? Very good. Tail docking, dehorning. Sometimes longevity of videos online don't help. Those conversations go away, right? Very good.
How terrible that they take the cat away from their mama.
Oh, we do hear that every once in a while, don't we? Yeah, there's some organized campaigns out there that keep that one alive. Anyone else? Yes.
They tend to believe that they're lactose intolerant.
Oh, that's...
A doctor's diagnosis.
Very good. Yeah, there's a lot of people that think they need to go dairy-free maybe, right? Okay. Great examples. Well, as we work through the workshop today, we're going to give you some techniques to help you through those. And more than that, some techniques to feel confident that you're the exact people who can lead the conversation and answer those questions.
So we have a few slides that say, do this. And we'll have slides that say, don't do this, not this, okay? So our first one is do this.
Very first thing we want you guys to remember, key, maybe something Skip showed us the opposite of, is that we always want you to listen first. And don't be shy to gather more information. That does 2 things. First thing, it buys you a little time, right? Helps you formulate a response in your head. Second thing it does is that it helps you better understand the mindset of the person asking the question. A lot of meaningful conversation can happen, I think, if you know where that idea is coming from. So, quick example, I live in Portland, Oregon. And I can tell you that I left the farm when I was 18, and I lived from New York to California. And I always worked on the consumer affairs side of the business. So I started out as a journalist, and then I transitioned over to public relations. With that, I really thought there probably wasn't a dairy, milk, cheese, or yogurt question that I could not find a response to pretty quickly when I worked internally for those organizations over the last 10 years. However, in fact, 2 of them you might get a kick out of. One that always stands out is a woman who called and was absolutely irate because she believed there was a cow carcass that had been laying in a pasture about 2 miles from the Pacific Ocean. And she was so adamant about how awful farmers must care for their animals that she was ready to start an anti-cheese campaign. So I worked with the farmer. We went out there, and it happened to be an overturned stump, not a dead cow. But it really didn't matter because she believed the opposite, right? Anyways, I was at a dinner in my neighborhood about 2 years ago probably, and we were having lively conversation because in Portland, in my neighborhood at least, I'm the only pseudo-dairy farmer in the neighborhood. And the conversation quickly turned because I live on a dairy farm, and I go to the dairy farm a lot. And so really good conversation because people, guess what, had never met a dairy farmer. Anyone else ever had that experience? Yeah, just a few times, right? Which is what makes us great spokespeople. So we had a lot of positive discussion, and at the end of that, it was tapering down, and a woman at the end of the table says to me,
So Michelle, are you a good farmer? Do you produce good milk or bad milk?
ooh. I thought to myself, this is what stopped me in my tracks. All of a sudden, it became very personal. So as we kick off this workshop, we want you to understand that we know how hard you work every day, and how easy it can be to become defensive when people ask a question like that. So we want to work through how to sort of take a deep breath, and I won't tell you how I would have liked to respond to her, but we will work through some good communication techniques if you find yourself in a similar situation.
So don't do this. Don't do what Skip did. Interrupt the questioner, because the minute you do that, you establish, I'm right and you're wrong. Don't get defensive. Don't use defensive body language. This means I am closed to listening. This is, okay, I really don't care about what you're saying. All right? So when you have an opportunity to enter the conversation, do it after you've listened.
Yeah, and one thing we want you definitely to do is to welcome the question. Whether it's an online question you might get, some of you probably have social media sites, you might have a website. An easy way is, thanks for checking in. I appreciate being part of this dialogue. It sort of opens up more of a discussion versus a retort, right? If it's in person, you know, even to Beth, the woman at the dinner party, I'll never forget that woman's face. And, you know, even though it was kind of tough for me to respond to that question, it's like, you know what, thanks for asking that question, because that's something that's often misunderstood. So I really appreciate you bringing it up so we can talk about it, you know? You have to look at those things as an opportunity.
So what if Skip would have started his response by saying, a study in 1997 by UW-Madison and supported by the Food and Drug Administration in 2001 stated that milk is safe and does not contain antibiotics. How did that sound? No. Don't lead with science. Is everything you do supported by science? Definitely. But don't lead with it. Lead with something that really connects with the person that's asking you the question. And that is finding some common ground. No matter how much you might have differing opinions about organic milk, conventional milk, whatever it is, you can always find something in common. Ask any politician. That's how they make it happen, right? So you might lead with, you know, like you, I have children, and I want to make sure that they have a healthy diet. Or, you know, like you, I've seen questions in the media about this, and I think it's something that I can really clear up. So by finding something, by finding common ground, you immediately diffuse the situation, and people like you.
One thing I think you guys pointed out as we were sort of critiquing Skip is that he seemed a little defensive. And like I mentioned with the dinner party discussion, the worst thing I could have done in that situation was get defensive, because we know that fostering dialogue and sharing positive experiences or telling stories is a much more effective and persuasive way to really have meaningful discussion. So here's an example. Is Jolene in the room? Jolene Griffin. Jolene oversees something we'll talk a little bit about at the end of the presentation called the My Dairy Advocate Program. Every once in a while, I think like the woman there in the middle of the room said, one of the tough questions or something that sort of has been brought to light is dehorning and tail docking and this kind of things. Sometimes dairy receives negative headlines in the news. We all probably can think of one example at least, right? When we're replying to those news stories oftentimes have quite a longevity anymore because of the World Wide Web, right? And they have a lot of comment area for people to weigh in. We are all an expert overnight. Just ask the internet, right? We can log on. We can have an instant soapbox. Well, positive thing with that is that during an ABC Nightly News broadcast a year or so ago, Jolene tracked all of the comments. I think there was over 1,400, thank you. And nearly 50% of those were positive towards dairy. Because of Chekhov's My Dairy program, they activated those folks, and they shared lots of positive experiences about how they care for animals. However, sometimes we can be our own worst enemy, and this is an example of that. This was a post that Jolene gathered from that abc.com. I'll read it really quickly. As a dairy farmer, I can tell you this is not what happens on dairy farms. Starts off strong. We are successful when our cows are well cared for. Excellent point.
And how are you successful?
Your job is the product of exploitation and cruelty, exploiting the livelihood of our nation's dairy farmers and being cruel to those who provide food for the entire country. Get a life beyond attacking people online.
Good or bad?
Might have felt good at the time. However, immediately getting defensive really doesn't help us win advocates, does it? Okay.
So do this. If you get a difficult question, to diffuse the situation, rephrase the question. What it does is it helps the listener know that you really care and that you're listening to them. So Skip could have said, so I think what you're asking is milk safe? Is that right? And then wait for an affirmation or clarification, and you will see the person's just body language diffuse and continue. So rephrase the question, another do. A don't is being closed to helping them understand. I did this workshop, I've done this workshop a couple times, and afterwards a dairy producer came up to me and kind of pulled me aside and said, you know, Jane, this sounds great, and these techniques sound great, and everything you're telling us to do about getting out in our community and engaging with consumers sounds great, but I just can't do it. It sounds like bragging to me. And I just wanted to just grab him and, you know, tell him, come on, you can do it, because if we don't do it, someone else is going to do it and define us. So we need to do it. We need to be in part of the conversation.
So how do we do that? We lead with something that matters to us and the general public or our consumers. We lead with something that matters to them, like health and wellness. I think it's a really good example. Most people eat food, therefore like to talk about food, and feel like they can connect with one another through food, right? We're going to play a little video. It's less than a minute, and it takes a look at what consumers are thinking about when they think of milk, cheese, and yogurt. Take a look.
Turn it up a little bit more.
Milk, yogurt for breakfast, and then more in the evening, cheese with lunch.
You know, if I was trying to lose a lot of weight, that might be something I consider taking out of my diet.
So I think it's relatively fattening.
I drink milk like water, and I eat a lot of cheese and stuff like that, and I enjoy it.
And I don't think people are getting obese from milk. It's probably more the hard cheeses.
Unless you're really not concerned with any sort of fat content, then it should be a treat.
I'd be more concerned with people drinking too much soda rather than milk.
Cheese is kind of a fatty food product, so it should be thought about.
So what were the things that, some commonalities in those comments, things that were top of mind to those consumers? When they think of dairy, fat is on their mind. Okay, anything else?
Any words you heard? Any misunderstandings? Anybody you liked on there?
The guy who drinks it like water, maybe? Right, we like him too. We need a couple more million of him, don't we? Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, he is. He is.
Well,
he's very healthy.
Probably the best way to lead the conversation as far as dairy goes is to try to bridge the knowledge you have on farm as dairy producers with what's important to you and your consumer, which is what? Good product, right? You produce milk. It's nutritious. It's the #1 food source for calcium. Anything else? Strong bones, very good. Like I said, there's no better spokespeople than those of you in this room. Jane, what are some other words?
Consumers love to talk about milk, cheese, and yogurt. Those are their words. Well, we want to talk about somatic cell count and nutrient management and animal care. They like to talk about milk, cheese, and yogurt. So when you engage with them online or in person, use the words. Use the words that you use, that you produce. Words like this: our product nourishes bodies, #1 source of calcium, potassium, vitamin D, builds strong bones and teeth, right? simple and natural, contains essential nutrients to nourish your family. And it has protein to build strong muscles. Your product does all of this. Are you proud of that? Yes, definitely.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Not a lot of foods could claim one, let alone all of those things, right?
Right.
Keep that in mind as you lead the discussion. Let's give a few examples before we let you roll up your sleeves and do some exercises here. Here's an idea of how you can bridge that gap, point out that you're credible. Who are you? As a dairy farmer, I'm proud to produce milk, the #1 food source of calcium, potassium, and vitamin D. Another example.
Oh, sorry.
Another example. I'm excited to share with you how our family produces simple and natural milk. One way we do this is by caring for our cows. Now you've bridged, certainly, into where you can have a deeper discussion about all those great animal care things that you do every day on your farm. Jolene and Sam are handing out some message flip books. Those are yours to keep. They're also yours to use in the exercise in a few minutes that we're going to get into. While I'm giving you key phrases that might kind of be a nice transition to start the discussion, those flip books have categories. You'll see it when you get them if you haven't seen them before. And they'll help give you more supporting points. They're consumer tested, so they're words that we know consumers want to hear. And maybe a final example, let me share the special role our cows play in putting milk, cheese, and yogurt on your table. And again, then you can launch into a deeper discussion about your animals.
So if you look at the flip books and turn all the way to the back in what looks like a navy blue section, it says health and wellness. Does everybody find it? Okay. These are some of the key messages that have been tested through your checkoff on nutrition, if you turn the page, on low-fat options, childhood nutrition, and another one on childhood nutrition. There are keywords and phrases in here. We don't want you to sound robotic, rehearsed. We want you to use these keywords and phrases in developing your own answers. And that's what you're going to do next. All right, it's your turn. This is an interactive workshop, and it's time for you to go to work. So we want you to prepare an answer to a difficult question. I'm going to divide the room into 4 groups. From here to here is group 1. All right? This is group 2. You're group 3. And from here to the front will be group 4. So you're in group 3. Okay? We're handing out pens and a worksheet. At the top of the worksheet are questions. Group 1. Are there antibiotics in milk? Group 2, will eating milk, cheese, and yogurt make me fat? Group 3, are animals on mega farms mistreated? And group 4, do you produce good milk or bad milk? Paula just asked what day it is. She's going to answer all 4 questions. Yes. What I want you to do is we have pens, we have worksheets. How will you welcome the question? What are the keywords or phrases regarding health and wellness that you want to begin with? Use your flip book for that. What's your key message? What will you say to find common ground with the person? You can make it up if you want. You can say, like you, I'm a mom, whatever. Find some common ground. And then, how will you end the conversation? Will you invite them out to your farm? Will you refer them to dairyfarmingtoday.org so they can watch a virtual farm tour? Will you encourage them to come to World Dairy Expo? What will you do to end the conversation and give them a call to action? So it's time for you to get to work, and we're here to help you.
You guys can work in pairs if you prefer. We're going to give you 5 to 10 minutes.
Yes.
And then we're going to ask for at least one volunteer out of each of those quadrants. So is everyone clear on if you're answering number 1, 2, 3, or 4? Okay, let's get started. We'll circulate around the room if you need help. Remember, these questions are meant to be consumer questions which means it might have made sense to the consumer who asked it, but you have to figure out how to interpret it and answer something that shows dairy in a very positive light.
Hi! Oh, let me turn off my mic. Oh, that's good. Did you get some of Skip? Did you get some of Skip? No, I didn't. Jolene might have. Luann's very lively right now, and that might be a good person to capture. Can I have one of the sheets? Can I have one of the activity sheets? Is there a leftover one? Yeah. We can note that there were about 65 people. That's awesome. Yeah, because we all get asked that. You think we should back up and put one of the key phrases up? Just like back up a slide. Maybe one more. I like the other one better. Because none of those are in their flip books.
I don't even think you should go there. Sometimes you don't go there. Right, because then you don't want to
Speak on, okay. I think we're doing good. We're definitely past that point mark of our presentation. So with report out and stuff, I think we'll be fine. I'm going to see if Molly and Barb are actually doing next week.
Everyone doing good? Any questions? Okay, very good. I see a volunteer in the makings.
Oh, sorry, he was asking a question, I think. Go drink some water. Get that cotton mouth. No, I have it up front.
tested and regulated food is on RCI.
How are you, Sally? Did you bring your girls?
No, not this time. They had a busy week at school, so.
I'm glad you made it. Is it your first World Dairy Expo? It's impressive, huh?
It is, and I learned so much of these things, especially answering these questions, because I'm more in the spotlight because of kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, they're constantly, well, even the kids are being asked. And their liberal teachers are asking hard questions that they shouldn't have to answer.
Yeah. I bet you see it all. Yeah. At like 3rd grade, probably.
Sixth.
Sixth grade.
They're finishing up.
Okay. Maybe give them a 2-minute call. We're going to give you guys about 2 more minutes to wrap up. And then we're going to ask for at least one volunteer in each of the 4 sections, or each of the 4 questions.
And we might actually call in a few people, too.
Oh.
Who's first? Who's doing in this group?
We're going to read the question that she has already stated. Good. We're not even going to address that. Our key message is going to be good. You guys all know.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thanks for coming today. Remember, when we ask for volunteers in a minute, we're just going to ask you to read the question and then read what your response would be. Okay, so you don't have to give us all the details of your worksheet. Hopefully that helped you arrive at sort of an overriding message. So get ready to volunteer.
Who's excited in group 1? Who's raising their hand?
Wow, it's overwhelming.
You look like you're excited. Come on up. Come on up. You want to volunteer? Yeah.
You'll do great. Okay. How about a little support for our first volunteer?
Let's get some support. What's your name?
Doreen.
Hi, Doreen. And you're group 1. So, Doreen, are there antibiotics in milk?
Well, thank you for asking. But where have you heard about antibiotics?
I saw it on a TV show called Nightline.
Oh, all right. Oh, well, that's a good question. I appreciate you asking again. Milk is regulated by the USDA and tested on our farm and at the production site. So no milk that is tested positive will ever reach the consumer.
Great. Well, that's good to know. I'm really glad you explained that, because a lot of times I have questions and I just want to learn. So thanks for explaining.
Yeah, again, thanks for asking. And if you ever have any questions, you can either ask me or any dairy farmer or go to the DMI management website, and they'll be able to answer your questions.
Fabulous.
No pressure, group 2, but she set the bar pretty high.
All right. Would you state your name in the microphone, please?
I'm Nicole.
All right, Nicole. Your question was, will eating milk, cheese, and yogurt make me fat, Nicole?
Well, you know, I too am concerned about what kind of things I'm eating and if I'm eating well. And dairy actually has a lot of different options at the store. You can get a low-fat option for cheese or yogurt, milk when you go up to the dairy case. And really, milk, whatever variety you choose to consume it in, has a lot of nutrients for you. There's actually 9 essential nutrients that will do very good for your body, help build strong bones. Any other concerns you might have?
No, can you give me one of the nutrients?
Calcium, potassium, vitamin D, very good for strong bones.
All right, great. Well, thank you.
Wow, good job.
She did a great job finding common ground. Did you hear her say that? Like you. And you did a great job of referring me to a website or more information to the farm. So fabulous. You guys are doing a great job. Okay. This group? Anybody? Mark, would you do it? All right. We don't know each other. We just met actually right before the workshop. So I was chatting with him, and so I'm asking him to volunteer. Are animals on mega farms mistreated, Mark? Are they, Mark?
Well, you know, the media, including YouTube, really seems to love to go to the extreme with the 1 in a million incident. Some of the mistreatment incidents have been staged.
Oh, really? So how can I tell? Like, where could I get, you know, videos that aren't staged? How do I know the difference?
Well, you probably really don't. You should visit with a veterinarian who is skilled in stockmanship, and I'm sure they're glad to tell you their story on how they've been trained to treat the animals humanely, and with years of experience from the veterinary community. They've trained people on the farms through stockmanship programs to handle the animals properly.
Great, great job. He gave me a resource. And aren't veterinarians credible? Research shows that they are very credible when talking about dairy. So, great job. Thank you, Mark. Give him a hand. Are you? All right. Paula's volunteered. No, she hadn't. So, Paula, on your farm, do you produce good milk or bad milk?
You know, as a parent, and now as a grandparent, I'm really concerned about what my kids and what I too drink. Did you know that every dairy farmer's milk, every tank of milk that's produced before it's picked up is checked for antibiotics?
I did know that.
Oh, yeah, so we are the most regulated food there is. So, you know, as a dairy farmer, yes, I know my milk is good and everybody else's is good.
All right, good.
If you have any more questions or any concerns, you might want to go to dairyfarmingtoday.org. You know, that may really answer a lot of your questions that you may have.
Okay, thanks. Can I come out to your farm too?
Absolutely. We do farm tours all the time.
All right.
Feel free.
Thanks. Give her
Very
a hand.
good.
So one thing we heard from all of you was passion for what you do. You all have passion for your industry, for the dairy industry, for producing milk, cheese, and yogurt. So do this.
If there is probably one slide in this whole 45-minute presentation that we have with you today, it's this one that I would really, really like to flag for you guys to walk out of here with. First one is believe that each and every one of you are a credible source to answer these types of questions. There is no one actually who probably knows more about dairy than everyone sitting in this room. You also need to believe that consumers, the people of the general public, most of them really do want to learn. They're curious. They've probably never met a dairy farmer before, kind of like the dinner party example I gave. Once people knew that I was a dairy farmer, they just wanted to know all about life on the farm. They certainly had some questions about labels and things that they found a little confusing. And they'd never had the opportunity to visit with someone. Whether you live on a farm or not, you probably know more about dairy than the average person you sit next to at a game, you meet at school, parents of kids, you know, that are friends with your kids, that kind of thing. So believe that people really do seek out more information. Don't shy away from them.
Have you ever done a farm tour and the people have said, well, you know, we'll come over for an hour, we'd love to see your farm. And 2.5 hours later, you're still answering questions, right? Because they're hungry for the information. They love the information. They love learning about it. And Brad Scott from California has an example of that he just experienced. Brad, would you stand next to me so they can see your face and tell them about your panel experience?
Like I was talking to Jane earlier, I've had opportunity to serve on many different panels of talking to teachers for Ag in the Classroom and other events. And the one thing that's always kind of the common thing is when I'm sitting on there speaking as a dairy farmer, we have other agriculture people on the panel with me. And regardless of their commodities, the questions always come back to the dairy. And the last panel I did just last week with the Ag in the Classroom, some teachers, was my questions were going so long, the other three panelists were not getting questions, and the moderator finally had to start saying, we'd like to hear more about this, but we do have other panelists. So it's really amazing the more you talk out there and tell your story that people want to hear. And when it's like you said, the dairy tours, you can't just give an hour dairy tour. It's a 3, 4, a 5-hour dairy tour.
Yeah. Thanks, Brad. Thanks.
Yeah, so look, just like Brad gave an example of sitting on a panel, there are information seekers out there. That's how we refer to them anyways. In the social media world, we have this term called badvocates. Not advocates, but badvocates. Do they exist out there? You bet they do. Maybe special interest groups that don't believe animal protein should be in the diet. They have a vegan agenda, right? Anyone can give me an example, I'm sure, of an organization like that. HSUS, great one. Any more? PETA, super. But with that said, while it's important that we keep those organizations on our radar, I want everyone to walk out of this room and remember that most shoppers, most consumers, most of the general public, friends, family, people you meet in an elevator, they love the food that you produce, milk, cheese, and yogurt. They believe in what you do. They see you as credible resources to answer these types of questions. So when you're out there trying to lead a conversation, we're not asking you to go to head-to-head with a PETA member. That would probably be a waste of all of our time, right? All we want you to do is try to be a little more proactive and share information with those people in your circle, your friends, your family. We have Thanksgiving coming up. I think oftentimes we think that people, even in our family or extended family, know what we do because, oh, Annie M, lives on a dairy farm, what have you. Well, guess what? A lot of our extended relatives, that might be about where it stops, right? They might not know quite as much as we'd like to believe. So why not take an opportunity that one time a year when you see a niece or a nephew who maybe lives in a city, share some fun experiences with them, things you've been busy with. Maybe they'll then share them with other people. It can be as simple as that.
6 years ago, I did a community outreach workshop in California, in the Bakersfield area. And about 6 months after the workshop, I called one of the dairy producers and I said, have you implemented any of the things that we talked about, the ideas? Do you have a brochure? Have you hosted an open house? Have you done anything like that? And he went, no, Jane, it's just easier for me to just stay under the radar. And that was 6 years ago. Since then, we have Proposition 2. We're on the radar. And it's no longer okay to duck. So we need to talk to everybody. Just get out there, leave this room, find somebody, and talk to them about your farm.
We're going to play a little video of some dairy farmers and I think a veterinarian that were interviewed as part of Dairy Farming Today. If you haven't been on that website, dairyfarmingtoday.org, it's intended to be a consumer education site that talks about modern dairy farming. It has lots of good fact sheets and questions. Here are some dairy farmers answering questions about, is milk healthy and safe? What are you proud to produce? Why do you produce milk? Those types of questions. It's about a minute.
I think one of the things that the general public would be surprised at is the safety of our product. The milk is probably the safest food that they can buy in a grocery store today. We create a very wholesome product, and that is one thing that we are very, very proud of.
Every load of milk that comes out of SD Farm, it's a snap test for antibiotics. So every truckload of milk that leaves here is antibiotic free every day. Every other dairy in the United States is the same way. It is a very healthy product, and it can be consumed by kids to elderly. And I'm proud of that fact, that we are supplying a nutritious product to the whole world.
I'm very confident that we provide by far the healthiest product in the world.
All the milk that leaves this dairy gets tested no less than 3 times by us, by the people who buy the milk, and then on other occasions when there's inspectors that come through the plant. We have the safest food supply in the world, period. And I'm proud of that.
So research shows that consumers trust you and that consumers love your product. So with that knowledge, as you leave this room, and I know you're going to charge out of here wanting to lead the conversation,
express your passion for the industry. Talk to everyone you know. They love your values. They love how authentic you are. They love that you're real. Don't be afraid to lead the conversation and be an advocate for dairy.
How can you be an advocate for dairy? Jolene and Sam are going to hand out kind of an overview of the My Dairy program. It's an advocate program, has about 1,500, mostly dairy producers, about 1,500 strong across the nation. But we need more. We need more people who are willing to share their positive experiences online. So there's a registration form, and there's also a little bit of an overview that talks about what the My Dairy program is. It's meant to be proactive. It's meant simply, we won't flood your inbox with all kinds of useless information. We really just give you thought starters, things that we know consumers want to hear about that might resonate with them, that you might want to share with that, circle of friends, one-on-one, maybe your employees, maybe extended family, or maybe you already have a presence in social media, and it just gives you some ideas on how to share that information with a broader audience. So on the screen, we have a couple of examples. I can tell you 2 years ago, when Your Checkoff started this program, there was literally one dairy producer with a blog. One. His name is Will Gilmore. He still is a tremendous advocate and spokesperson for each and every one of you. And he's now expanded his social media outreach to Twitter, Facebook, and he has his own YouTube channel. And he continues to blog. Oh, and he has 2 small children and a dairy farm. So he's a great resource for all of us. Some of you already have Facebook accounts. All we ask is that once in a while, you start talking about the food you produce. Why do you enjoy producing milk? Why do you do it? Start sharing some of that information that's a little more broad that will resonate with the people in your circles. And guess what? They might start sharing that information a little more broadly with the people in their circles. There's only 53,000 of us left out there, dairy farmers across the U.S. That might sound like a big number to some, but we can use every voice we can get. Couple things you could do as you leave this room is hand in the registration form, and we'll get you signed up. That means maybe you'll join a webinar quarterly that's 45 minutes and gives you tips on how to engage a little bit more online. Maybe it just is reading those e-blasts that come your direction, and it gives you some thought starters for having more meaningful conversations. Certainly, we encourage you to visit dairyfarmingtoday.org if you haven't already. It's intended to be a consumer educational website for you, the 53,000 dairy farmers that are left out there, and certainly your family and friends. If you know of anyone back home, maybe a family member, maybe an employee that you think would be a great My Dairy advocate, write down this email, mydairy@rosedmi.com, and just shoot an email with their name and email address, and we'll get them signed up as well. Check out any of our Dairy Farming Today, YouTube, Flickr, Twitter, various social media accounts, become friends, fans, like us, all of those things that help search engine optimizations point to us so general consumers get to hear from good people like you. I think we're ready to wrap up with some questions.
Right. Before we end, I just have to ask you, do you produce a nutritious product that nourishes bodies and builds strong bones and teeth? Yes. All right. Are you ready to go out that door and tell somebody about it? Yes. All right. Great. Well, we're going to open it up to questions. Paul, I know you have a closing for us, too. And Michelle and I will be around here. We're almost out of time, so I think what we'll do is probably let you wrap up, and then we'll stick around and answer questions, if that's okay.
Well, join me in thanking Jane and Michelle for such a great job. And I would encourage you all to either stop by the booth up at in the trade show, the DMI booth, to get more information, and or check with your state and regional organization, your local checkoff people to get more information about these things. And make sure and fill out the little green evaluation form. And I would like to thank you all for this time and go out there and tell our story. Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, play the music. We'll be around for questions as long as you'd like.